Okay, well, tell us what the latest, your latest understanding is of this alleged deal.
With respect to hostages, so what I will say is that we are very close to an agreement, but we are not there yet. As you have heard us say a number of times over the course of the past few weeks, nothing is final until everything is final. And at this point, everything is not yet final, but we are close. The Israeli cabinet is meeting to discuss this matter right now. We are in close conversation with them, as we are with the government of Qatar, who has been helping facilitate discussions since the early days of the crisis. We are hopeful to have some good news for the hostages and their families. We're hopeful we can start bringing some of them home, but as I said at the outset, we are not quite there yet.
All right, well, so when you made reference to the Israeli cabinet meeting right now, is that the last thing that needs to be done?
I really don't want to get into the underlying details. Obviously, the Israeli government discussing and coming to some sort of resolution is one part of this. There are others. I don't want to get into the full details. I will say that, of course, the implementation and execution of an agreement, should one be reached, requires the cooperation of Hamas, a terrorist organization. So it's why we're always hesitant to say too much about what will happen before it has happened, but we are close to an agreement and hopeful one can be reached.
Okay, thanks.
Is your understanding that the first tranche of hostages to be released would include Americans?
I just can't get into any type of details of what an agreement would look like, including who would be released if such an agreement was finalized.
And have you received any updates on their conditions, whereabouts, if they're being held together, if they are all in fact being held by Hamas?
Again, I can't get into too much into the underlying details. It has always been our assessment that Hamas may not have control of all of these hostages, but beyond that, I just don't want to speak to any specific details. Yeah. Barbara. Oh, sorry.
My follow-up. Is it your understanding that if and when a deal is reached, that would then trigger more aid being able to get into Gaza, as the Secretary had suggested would happen?
Let me say a couple things about that. One, it has always been the position of the United States that we do not need a hostage deal. There shouldn't to get more aid in, that more fuel, more food, more water, more medicine should not be contingent on a hostage agreement being reached. We thought that the delivery of humanitarian assistance for the Palestinian people was important in its own right, and that's why the Secretary has been pushing for it. It's why the President has been pushing for it. It's what our Ambassador David Satterfield, our special envoy, I should say, Ambassador David Satterfield, has been working to implement on the ground. That said, it has been clear that for some time that an agreement on hostages would release or would unlock the potential for delivery of more humanitarian assistance. So we're hopeful that that would take place. But again, it has always been our position that the two don't need to be linked, that humanitarian assistance should be delivered as quickly as possible for the benefit of the Palestinian people.
But the Israelis seem to have linked it, it seems.
It does seem that, the way I would say it is, it does appear that any kind of hostage agreement, should we reach one, would unlock more humanitarian assistance flowing in. Barbara.
Actually, that was similar to my question, but on the understanding that is what you're hoping for, have you made extra preparations? I mean, are you poised to move quickly to get more aid in? Like, what's the activity around that?
We have been working to, not just related to any hostage arrangement, we have been working independent of that to facilitate the delivery of more humanitarian assistance in. And so you have seen U.S. aid fly more humanitarian assistance into Egypt to have it pre-positioned so it could go into Gaza. Some of that aid has started to move. We've been working with other international donors to facilitate the delivery of aid to Egypt to go in through Rafah. And then, of course, there's a screening process that has been a bit of an impediment to the fast delivery of aid. And we have been working with the government of Israel, with the government of Egypt on all of these matters to try to increase the flow of humanitarian assistance. You saw a breakthrough last week, an initial breakthrough, when we saw an agreement to deliver fuel in, which of course is important to ensure that water can be desalinated. It's important to ensure that there's electricity for hospitals. It's important to ensure that the implementers, the organizations that actually deliver the humanitarian assistance inside Gaza, once it goes through Rafah into Gaza, that they can deliver it to the people who need it. So we have been pushing all those things independent of any potential hostage arrangement, and will continue to do so.